This was one of those strange cases where the idea was actually exciting enough to me that I just decided to dive in straight away. I wasn't even recording in optimal conditions, but it just seemed like I needed to get into the drawing. This is another of the dragon prompts from Smogist, and this one is Mimic. And one of the most intriguing things when you're trying to work with a creature that hides itself, a creature that disguises itself as something else, is you've got to work on combining ideas. Because if this creature is going to hide where otherwise it would just be spotted, it needs to mimic something. My brain immediately goes to some of the lizards and frogs that literally have body structures that resemble leaves or the bark on a tree. Or perhaps an octopus, a cuttlefish, or even the mimic octopus, which literally will try to pretend to be different animals, maneuvering the texture of its body, its limbs, the very colors that it displays. So when you're trying to work on an animal that is mimicking something else, it is hiding, perhaps to ambush food or perhaps to avoid becoming food itself, you naturally have to combine ideas. And of course, I combined two of my favorites. I am obviously working with a dragon, but I combined it with mushrooms. So what if you had a reptilian form, a dragon that had a crest around its neck, like a frilled lizard almost, and maybe its tail is also trying to pretend to be its own head, so that even if it is attacked by something, there's a 50% chance that it will survive. And this is something we see in nature. We see some animals that actually have markings on their tails to make it look as if it is a head. Some lizards and some snakes have this. You'll find that whether you're combining details or making things up on your own, there is a lot in nature that will give you what you need. You might have heard the phrase that reality is stranger than fiction, and truly it is the case when it comes to animals. The more you delve into bizarre animals in our world, the easier it is to create fantastic ones because there are already creatures who do insane, crazy things in our own world. So I obviously started with a quick sketch on this guy. And even though I'm not going to draw the neck, I decided to sketch where it was going anyway. I think this is really wise. If you have a form in any drawing you're making that is going through something or behind something, it's a good idea just to draw it. You can easily erase it or white it out later in some capacity. But this will allow the proportions of the creature to actually look correct. And so now I'm starting to move down the design of the creature, starting to put it together. This is one of those rare cases where the idea was exciting enough to me that it got me into the drawing right off the bat. I would say predominantly when I sit down to work, I either have no idea or I'm working on hashing out an idea. This is a rarer situation for me, though not everybody is structured the same. I'd like to hear about you though. Are you the kind of person who is always, or more often than not, excited about your ideas before you sit down to work on them? Or are you the kind of person that sits down and the work itself dictates what you do? The added benefit of having an idea that is exciting, though, is the fact that it's fun to work on it. Now, when you are excited about something, you always open yourself up for disappointment because you have expectations about how a thing might go. But I would wager that it's worth it. It is worth risking some small level of disappointment to have joy and excitement about a particular drawing that you're working on. I know some of you might be saying, well, of course, it's art, it should be fun, but sometimes art is drudgery, and it shouldn't be all the time. If it is, then you're probably doing something wrong, but it is going to hit points where it feels like you're having to force yourself through things, especially if your goal is progress. And so, jumping on an exciting idea, not allowing yourself to sit there and wait for an optimal time or for a better idea, sometimes it's worth just diving in, trying something out, working on something when you're excited to do it. It's not always going to work out. Sometimes your excitement is primarily emotion and you actually need to do some research and think about things before you do them, but sometimes it will work out really well. And as you continue to hone your skills, as you continue to practice and gain a better understanding of three-dimensionality and form, it'll work out more often than it won't. And I am happy to say that I am finally getting to that point. So if you are the kind of person where your drawings rarely turn out the way you want, I understand, I empathize. For the vast majority of my life, that was the case. It's only in the past year and a half, maybe, where the majority of my drawings turn out the way that I want them to. This actually extends to my paintings as well and digital work too. So if you are the kind of person who stresses about that, who frets, who wonders what you're doing wrong because you can't draw from imagination, you can't draw things that turn out the way that you want, just understand that I am a good example of that skill being able to be developed. And I wondered for a long time whether that skill could be developed, whether it was just something I was cursed or blessed with, regardless, and this is just where I was going to be. In fact, there were large portions of my artistic life where I was just resigned to the fact that my skill was what it was, and I was going to have to find other people, pay other artists perhaps to bring things to life. I am happy to report that after about a year and a half to 2.5 years of steady practice, drawing several hours every single week, working on skill sets that I'm not good at, and working on several challenges like Inktober and Smogist, things that push me out of my comfort zone, I am finally getting to a point where over 50% of my drawings turn out the way that I want them to. Now, that might not sound like a great number, but if you feel like none of your drawings turn out the way you want them to, doesn't half sound pretty great? And that's kind of where I'm trying to look at it from as well. Obviously, I would like all of my drawings to turn out the way that I want them to. That would be awesome. I would love that. But that's not the case for me. And so I'm trying to be satisfied for the moment and happy with the fact that I am progressing. I am continuing to grow. And I really think that's the crux of it. As long as you are seeing growth in your artistic endeavors, there's a reason to keep making, a reason to hold on to things. When you're on that journey, though, trying to get better at drawing from imagination, trying to get better at drawing the things that you want to, it's important to do two of the things that I'm doing here. One, of course, I've already mentioned, which is allowing yourself to dive into things that are exciting, to things that are fun. The other is giving yourself a break sometimes and not working on things in the most difficult way possible. This drawing is from the side profile, which I find significantly easier than doing it where the figure is coming towards you or going away from you, something like a bird's eye view or a 3/4 view. This is a much easier way for me to draw, and I would reckon it is for you as well. Some of the dragons I've done from very different angles, or we're seeing at least a portion of the other side of the creature. But this was certainly not the first drawing in this challenge. This was, I'd already done like a dozen by this point. And so that means I needed to give myself a little bit of a break. I needed to do something that was not just exciting, but that was a little less stressful. And so that's the second thing that I would recommend. While you're on your path to hone your skills, to keep working on things that are new and challenging so you can draw from imagination and draw the things you want to draw, don't push yourself every single moment you're working on art. Give yourself some moments to work on things that are a little bit easier. I think it is far more important that you continue making, that you continue creating, than that you're creating everything in a productive manner. There's nothing wrong with taking a day of your artistic time and drawing a bunch of emojis. You don't have to practice perspective or anatomy all the time. You can focus on things that are just fun. I do a lot of little drawings for my daughter. I actually send her with a little drawing every single day. Originally, I thought about making these drawings kind of sophisticated or intriguing, working on them the night before, giving each one 5 or 10 minutes, but of course, reality sets in. Frequently, I find myself in the morning slamming together a snack for her for school, and I have 35, 40 seconds to do a little drawing to shove into her lunchbox. And it's more important to me that she gets that little drawing every day than it is that it's a beautiful or majestic drawing. My daughter's 5. She just cares if the drawing's interesting and that there's something that reminds her of her dad each day. So, yesterday it was just a bunch of planets and sometimes it's a dragon or a monster or an octopus or a hot air balloon. It's not always something that makes sense. When I have more time or I'm ahead of schedule, I will do illustrations that have me in them or her in them or Andorra or a dragon from one of my illustrations. I will do more fun things, but often I only have a minute Then I'm throwing her in the car and taking her to school. It's important to spend time drawing things that are just for fun, that are kind of casual. And this dragon for me is one of those things. So if you are working on honing your skills, you are working on trying to learn how to draw from imagination, these kinds of things are really beneficial. Follow the ideas that are exciting for you, and give yourself a break from the hard stuff now and again. If you want to grow, you're going to have to do the hard stuff sometimes. You can't avoid it at all. Pain is going to come your way, but that's totally fine. Just understand that that's part of reality and anticipate it, and it'll surprise you less, and you'll find that it's much more bearable in that case. Well, as always, thanks for listening, and thank you to my patrons who are on the screen now. If you want to check out my Patreon, it's in the link below in the description. It gives you access to some additional videos and to updates and whatnot, as well as voting on and directing upcoming content. We have a Discord server for the channel as well, and it's also in the description. It's a little community where we work together. We are able to give each other feedback on our artwork, help each other out, and also just rant about artistic things. I would encourage you to check it out. Well, have a good one, y'all. See you soon.